Morning traffic in Carroll County came to a dead stop, for a reason no one could believe. When Officer Tad Bailey arrived to clear the road, he didn't expect to find a Bobcat blocking traffic on Route 302, refusing to move as cars backed up for a quarter mile. Drivers honked and yelled. Someone even demanded he shoot it. But the situation was far more serious than anyone realized. As he got closer, he discovered she wasn't alone. 4 Bobcat kittens were huddled in the middle of the road. Tad realized he was witnessing something no textbook could explain, something heartbreaking. What was this mother Bobcat trying to do? Stay with us. You won't believe how this ends. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The morning sun over Carroll County was aggressive. It wasn't the gentle, waking up kind of sunlight that poets wrote about. It was a blinding, high-beam glare that bounced off the asphalt of Route 302 and pierced right through Officer Tad Bailey's sunglasses. Tad was 58 years old, a veteran of the force who measured his shifts not in hours, but in the amount of lukewarm coffee remaining in his thermos. Today, the thermos was full, but his patience was already running on fumes. Dispatch to Unit 4. The radio crackled, the voice of Mabel, the dispatcher, sounding tinny and amused. Mabel had been dispatching since the invention of the wheel, or so it felt. Tad, we've got a 10 to 25 blocking the eastbound lane near the old mill turnoff. Complainant says traffic is backed up for a quarter mile. Tad sighed, adjusting his seatbelt, which seemed to shrink a little every year. 10 to 25? Traffic hazard. Is it a deer, Mabel? Please tell me it's not the Henderson's cows again. I don't have the boots for manure today. Negative on the cows, Unit 4. Complainant states it is. A cat, a big cat, refusing to yield right of way. Tad chuckled, steering his cruiser onto the highway. A house cat. Someone stopping traffic for Mr. Whiskers? Not a house cat, Tad. A bobcat, a really stubborn one. The drive was short, but the line of cars was long. Tad could see the shimmering heat haze rising off the roofs of sedans and pickup trucks. The scene was a classic portrait of American impatience. A man in a tailored suit was leaning out of a silver Lexus, yelling at a pickup truck in front of him. A woman in a minivan was trying to subdue 3 screaming toddlers with juice boxes while honking rhythmically. Tad hit his lights. Just a quick whoop-whoop to announce that the law had arrived to restore order to the chaos. He pulled onto the shoulder, grabbed his heavy-duty gloves, because you never knew, and stepped out into the crisp, bright air. As he walked up the center line, the angry chorus of drivers parted. "Officer, someone shoot the thing!" yelled a man with a New York license plate. "It's rabid! Look at it, it's just standing there!" screamed a lady clutching a poodle. Tad ignored them. He walked past the lead car, an 18-wheeler idling with a low grumble. And there, in the dead center of the double yellow line, sat the source of the mayhem. It was a female bobcat, and she was magnificent, even in her dishevelment. She wasn't hissing. She wasn't crouching in that low predator prowl that precedes a pounce. She was simply sitting on her haunches, upright and regal, staring down a line of 2 tons of steel as if she were a crossing guard waiting for the light to change. Her ear tufts twitched in the wind, catching the sound of Tad's boots crunching on the gravel. "All right, Mother," Tad said softly, stopping about 20 feet away. "You've made your point. You own the road. But these folks have places to be." The bobcat turned her head. Her eyes were a piercing gold, framed by the distinctive ruff of fur that makes the species look like disgruntled Victorian gentlemen. She looked at Tad, then deliberately looked down at her paws. That's when Tad saw them. Blending in with the gray asphalt and the mottled fur of the mother were 4 kittens. They were balls of fluff, spotted and wild, milling around her legs. "Well now," Tad whispered, his annoyance evaporating instantly. "It's a family outing." But as Tad took a step closer, his professional eye, honed by decades of rural policing and dealing with wildlife, caught the discrepancy. It was a detail that turned the situation from a nuisance into a tragedy. 2 of the kittens were robust. They were miniature tanks, batting at the yellow road paint, their movements sharp and energetic. They looked to be about 8 weeks old, practically vibrating with the energy of healthy predators. The other 2 were ghosts. They were half the size of their siblings. Their fur was dull, lacking the glossy sheen of health. Their hip bones jutted out sharply against their spotted coats. While the big siblings played, these 2 stood motionless, their heads hanging low. The mother let out a low, guttural sound. Not a growl, but a communication. One of the tiny runts tried to take a step toward her, wobbled, and then simply collapsed. It didn't sprawl out comfortably. It fell like a toy that had its battery yanked out. It lay on the hot asphalt, its tiny sides heaving with the effort of simply breathing. The traffic behind Tad honked. A long, impatient blast. The mother bobcat didn't flinch. She didn't bolt into the woods, which were only 10 yards away. She looked at the collapsed kitten, then she looked up at Tad. She held his gaze. There is a look that animals give when they have exhausted every instinct they possess. Usually, a bobcat is a phantom. You're lucky to see a tail disappearing into the brush. For a mother to expose her entire litter on a highway in broad daylight meant only one thing. This was a Hail Mary pass. "Something is wrong," Tad muttered to himself. "Terribly wrong." He keyed his radio on his shoulder. "Mabel, call the Killam Wildlife Center. Get Ben or anyone from the rehab team on the line. I've got a situation here that's above my pay grade." "Copy that, Tad? Is the cat attacking?" "No," Tad said, his voice thick with emotion. "She's waiting." While he waited for the call back, Tad assessed the tactical situation. He was a police officer, not a biologist, but he knew the woods. He knew that approaching a mother predator was usually a great way to get stitches. But looking at the heap of fur on the road, he knew the kitten didn't have 20 minutes for a rehab team to drive out. The kitten was gasping. The heat of the road was baking it. "I can't wait," Tad decided. He walked back to his cruiser and popped the trunk. He bypassed the flares and the tire iron and grabbed a thick woolen blanket he kept for winter breakdowns. He also grabbed a bottle of water, though he wasn't sure how he'd use it yet. He walked back to the front of the line. The truck driver leaned out of his cab. "Hey, officer, you gonna ticket it or move it?" "Quiet," Tad snapped, silencing the man with a glare. He approached the family again. The mother bobcat stood up. Tad froze. This was the moment. If she charged, he'd have to retreat. If she panicked, she might bolt and leave the runts to be crushed. "I'm not here to hurt you," Tad spoke in a low, monotone drone. "I'm just going to help the little one. You understand? Just the little one." The mother bobcat stiffened. Her muscles bunched beneath her coat. She looked at the healthy kittens, then down at the one gasping on the pavement. She let out a chuffing sound. To Tad's astonishment, she took a step back. She sat down again, 3 feet further away, leaving the collapsed kitten isolated in the growing gap between them. It was a transaction, an offering. Tad moved with slow, fluid deliberation. He didn't make eye contact with the mother anymore. That was a challenge. He kept his eyes on the kitten. He knelt on the hard road, the heat radiating through his uniform trousers. He reached out with the towel. The kitten was so small, shockingly light. It felt like a handful of dry leaves held together by skin. As he scooped it up, the kitten let out a weak hiss, a tiny, defiant spit of air. I know, Tad whispered. You're a tiger. You're big and scary. He wrapped the towel around the frail body. He looked up. The mother was watching him. She didn't lunge. She didn't scream. She simply blinked, her golden eyes unreadable, yet filled with a terrifying intelligence. Tad backed away slowly. I've got him. Once he was safe in the cruiser, he placed the bundled kitten on the passenger seat and cranked the AC. He called Mabel. I'm en route to the center. I've got one. The mother, she let me take it. She's moving the others off the road now. Sure enough, in his rearview mirror, Tad saw the mother nudging the remaining 3 kittens, one still noticeably small and struggling, toward the ditch. The traffic began to flow, engines roaring as people rushed to make up for lost time, oblivious to the tragedy that had just played out on the center line. The Killam Wildlife Center was a sanctuary of calm compared to the highway. It was tucked deep in the woods, a place where the air smelled of pine needles and antiseptic. Dr. Sarah Miller met Tad at the door. She was a woman who had wrestled black bears and nursed eagles. Nothing fazed her. She took the bundle from Tad without a word and rushed it to the examination table. Tad paced in the waiting room, drinking coffee that was actually hot this time, though he couldn't taste it. Sarah came out 20 minutes later. She looked grim. It's a male, she said. He weighs 680 grams. Tad, a bobcat this age, should be pushing 2 or 3 kilograms. He's a skeleton. Severe dehydration, hypoglycemia, he's crashing. Will he make it? We have him on heat support and subcutaneous fluids. We're tubing him some critical care formula. But honestly, it's 50-50. The mother, she must be starving herself. If she can't hunt, she can't make milk. The runts get pushed out by the big ones. Tad nodded, rubbing his face. There was another one. Another small one. And 2 big ones. Nature is cruel, Tad, Sarah said gently. She's pouring her resources into the ones that have the best chance. It's simple math to her. Calories in, calories out. It didn't look like math, Tad said, staring out the window at the tree line. She looked me in the eye. She blocked the highway, Sarah. She didn't just stumble there. She waited. Sarah didn't argue. She had seen enough unexplainable things in these woods to know that animals knew more than textbooks gave them credit for. The next 3 days were a blur of standard police work. Domestic disputes, a shoplifter at the hardware store, a fender bender in the Walmart parking lot. But Tad kept driving past that mile marker on Route 302, scanning the tree line. He felt a strange guilt. He had saved one. But what about the other small one? Was it freezing in the woods? Was the mother mourning? Or had she moved on? On the 4th morning, the radio crackled. Unit 4, Mabel said, and her voice was different this time, softer. Unit 4, you're not going to believe this. Tad's heart hammered against his ribs. Same location? Same location, blocking the road. Complainant says she's refusing to move. Tad didn't use the siren this time. He drove with a heavy urgency. When he arrived, the scene was eerily identical, like a recurring dream. The traffic was backed up. The sun was bright, The heat was rising, and there she was. The mother bobcat sat in the exact same spot. But this time, there were only 3 kittens with her. The 2 big, healthy tanks were batting at a dragonfly near the shoulder. And right in front of the mother, lying flat on the yellow line, was the second runt. It had finally given out. It was unconscious, a small scrap of fur looking perilously like roadkill. Tad parked the cruiser. He didn't even put on his gloves this time. He walked toward her, and the drivers, perhaps sensing the déjà vu or recognizing the officer, stayed quiet. The mother watched him come. She looked tired. Her coat was dusty, and her ribs were showing slightly. Raising 4 kittens is a heroic feat for a solitary hunter. Raising them during a dry spell with scarce prey is a martyrdom. "You came back," Tad whispered, stopping a few feet away. The mother stood up. She walked over to the collapsed kitten, a little female, he would later learn, and licked its ear once. A goodbye? Or a cleaning before the handover? She looked at Tad, blinked slowly, and then turned toward the woods. She let out a sharp chirp, and the 2 healthy kittens bounded after her. She paused at the edge of the asphalt, looking back one last time to ensure Tad picked up the bundle. Tad scooped up the second kitten. It was limp, cold to the touch. "Hang on, little one," Tad choked out. "Your brother is waiting for you." The reunion at the Keelam Center was a mix of clinical precision and emotional chaos. The second kitten was in worse shape than the first. Her blood sugar was so low she was comatose. "It's the sister," Sarah said, working quickly to insert a tiny IV catheter into a vein that was barely the width of a hair. "She's even lighter, 650 grams. For 2 weeks, it was touch and go." Tad stopped by after every shift. He watched through the glass of the isolation incubator. They looked like wet rats, not majestic predators. They were covered in wires and tubes, sleeping on heated pads. But bobcats are fighters. It is written into their DNA, a code of resilience that dates back to the Ice Ages. The turning point came on a Tuesday. Tad was watching them, sipping his coffee, when the male, whom the staff had informally named Tad, much to the officer's embarrassment, though he secretly loved it, stood up on wobbly legs. He let out a hiss at the glass. "He hates me," Tad smiled, tapping the glass. "That's good," Sarah said, walking up behind him with a clipboard. "We don't want them to like us. We want them to be wild. If they imprint on humans, they're dead. Hate is health." The female, named Root, followed suit a few days later. Once the fluids did their work and the high-calorie specialized meat paste filled their bellies, their growth exploded. It was as if their bodies had been paused and someone suddenly hit fast forward. Over the next few months, Tad watched them transform. The fuzz gave way to sleek, tawny coats with bold black spots. Their eyes shifted from the milky blue of infancy to a predatory, intelligent gold. They grew the signature black tufts on their ears, the antennae of the forest. They were moved from the incubator to a small indoor run, and then to a large outdoor enclosure that mimicked the New Hampshire woods. They practiced hunting. Sarah would hide dead mice and quail in the brush, and the siblings would stalk them. They were fierce. They wrestled with each other, rolling balls of claws and teeth, practicing the skills they would need to survive. They hissed at the keepers. They struck the food bowls with lightning speed. They were magnificent. But Tad always remembered the way they had looked on the asphalt, broken and small. He wondered about the mother. Had she survived? Did she raise the other 2 successfully? She made a choice, Sarah told him one afternoon as they watched the siblings tear into a rabbit carcass. She calculated that she could only feed 2. In the wild, she would have let these 2 die. It happens every day. But something made her try the alternative. She used the humans as a tool. That's high-level problem-solving, Tad. She used the traffic jam, Tad corrected. She knew we couldn't ignore a traffic jam. A year passed. The seasons cycled. The humid summer gave way to a riotous, colorful autumn, followed by the brutal white silence of winter. And finally, the muddy promise of spring. The kittens were now full-grown subadults. They were sleek, powerful, and utterly wild. They weighed nearly 20 pounds each. They were ready. The release day was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. The location was non-negotiable, the same stretch of woods off Route 302. Tad took the day off. He didn't wear his uniform. He wore flannel and jeans, feeling less like an officer and more like a proud, anxious uncle. They loaded the transport crates into the back of the center's truck. The cats were snarling inside, unhappy about the confinement. They banged against the plastic walls, their power evident in every thud. The drive was quiet. Tad sat in the passenger seat, watching the familiar trees roll by. "You think they remember?" Tad asked. "They remember the smells," Sarah said, driving carefully. "They remember the magnetic pull of home. Bobcats are territorial. This is their birthright." They pulled off onto the service road, away from the traffic, but close enough that the hum of cars was audible, the sound of the river of steel that had almost claimed them. They carried the crates deep into the timber, trudging through fern and pine duff until the highway noise faded to a whisper. The sun was setting now, casting long golden beams through the canopy. It wasn't the harsh, blinding light of that desperate morning a year ago. It was warm, honey-colored, and forgiving. The woods were alive with the sounds of insects and birds. The air smelled of damp earth and sap. "Okay," Sarah whispered. "You do the honors, officer." Tad approached the crates. He could hear them breathing inside, heavy, deep breaths. "All right, kids," Tad said softly. "You don't write, you don't call. Stay away from the road." He reached down and unlatched the first door, then the second. He stepped back quickly. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the male stepped out. He didn't bolt blindly. He slunk out, low to the ground, his shoulder blades rising and falling like pistons. He tasted the air. He looked at the trees, then back at Tad. There was no recognition in those eyes, and that was exactly how it should be. There was only wildness. The female followed, faster, lighter. She leaped over a fallen log with a grace that made Tad's heart ache. They stood together for a moment, silhouettes against the warm, dappled light of the forest floor. They were apex predators, restored to their throne. Then, a twig snapped in the distance. Both cats' heads snapped toward the sound. From the shadows of a dense hemlock thicket, about 50 yards away, a shape emerged. It was an older bobcat. Her ear tufts were slightly tattered, her coat a bit rougher, but the posture was unmistakable. She sat on her haunches, watching. Tad grabbed Sarah's arm. "Is that—" "It's possible," Sarah breathed. "It's her territory. She's still the queen here." The two young bobcats chuffed. They moved toward the older female, cautious but curious. The mother didn't chase them away. She didn't embrace them. Wild animals don't do group hugs, but she turned her body, signaling permission. She accepted their presence. She looked past her grown offspring, her gaze landing on Tad and Sarah standing by the crates. Across the 50 yards of fern and shadow, the officer and the Bobcat locked eyes one last time. The connection held for a second, a silent acknowledgement of the deal made on the asphalt. I gave them to you. You brought them back. The mother turned and melted into the underbrush. The two siblings followed her, their spotted coats acting as perfect camouflage, until they were just shadows. And then, they were gone. Tad stood there for a long time, listening to the silence of the woods. He felt a lump in his throat the size of a fist. "You okay, Tad?" Sarah asked, picking up the empty crates. Tad wiped his eyes, putting his sunglasses back on despite the fading light. He took a deep breath of the pine-scented air. "Yeah," Tad smiled, turning back toward the truck. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About my shift tomorrow." Tad laughed, a warm, genuine sound that echoed off the trees. "I hope it's just the Hendersons' cows. I think I'm done with cats for a while." They walked back to the truck, leaving the woods to its ghosts and its guardians, the highway behind them humming its never-ending song, oblivious to the miracle that had just run off into the trees.